In this video, we're going to see how can we create an automatically status that always changes for us on time, overdue, or paid out whenever you change anything here in this spreadsheet. So let's say here, this paid out right here, I'm going to read it off this status. And as you guys can see, my status is automatically changed for me on time, overdue, or on time. Let's be typing in here paid out again, enter. And the status is always going to be automatically updated. You can use this spreadsheet to control and manage payments or services or products or whatever. If you have a start date and an end date or a due date, you can use this spreadsheet to help you out and to have this alert through the text in the status itself and also through the highlight, greenish, yellowish, and also the headish one. And the spreadsheet is always gonna be automatically updated for you because we are using here the current date and we are using it through a function in Excel. So if you open this spreadsheet tomorrow or 1 month from now or next year, the date is always gonna be automatically updated for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and let's find out how can we do it step by step. Let's go. The first thing that we can start with is to have the today's date, because this is going to be important because whenever you open the spreadsheet, the today's date is always going to be automatically updated for you with the current date. So if you open the spreadsheet tomorrow or in the next month or in the next year, the date is always going to show and display to you the today's date. And we can do it instead of do it manually through a function in Excel, because that way we can have this automatically update. Let's start here with the cell B2, for example, and I can type it in date or today, whatever. I'm going to stick with date, for example. And in the cell underneath, I'm going to type it in, instead of manually, September 26th of 2023, because that way we're not going to have here an automatically change in the date. Instead, I can equal sign, type it in the today function, because that way I'm going to have the current date. Double click here, 1, 2, to make sure I can select the function, close parentheses, and that's it. Enter, we're done. So now always we're gonna have here the today's date. Now let me move on here to the column A. Let's decrease the size a little bit, maybe like 2, for example. Now here in the row number 5, I can start typing in the information that I'm gonna use to check whether or not a product, a service, or anything else is due, overdue, or it's on time, or it's paid out, whatever. So we're going to start here with the ID and, of course, the start date. But here, as the start date, I don't want you just type it in and to write everything in the same line, in the same row. To do it, I can break the lines. I can actually take this second word right here, date, and put just underneath the start. So start underneath date. To do it, in the same cell, I can basically type in everything together, and then I can press the Alt, Enter to break the rows, to break the lines. Enter. Okay, start date, and here maybe I can have the due date in days, for example. How many days is in the due date, for example, is from the due date. And here in the next column, I can have the due date, the date itself, and in the next column, days to expiration. And in the next one, I can have the status, for example. Okay, now I think we're done with the columns that we can use. And of course, you can use this expiration date to everything that you need to do. Okay, if you can use to services, to products, to whatever. Let me select here everything in the headers and also a couple rows underneath, maybe such as this, for example. And then I can click Home tab. I can centralize everything here, and I can click in Borders, all borders. Now let me just select only the headers, Home tab, put everything in bold, and change the font to a white one, and the background color or the theme color to a blue one. But actually, you can choose the color that you like to use. Now let me select here the column B up to the column G. Click, hold, and drag down here, basically in between one column and another. Click, hold, and drag down to the right to make sure I can increase the size of the columns, such this, for example. Now let me just adjust also here the design of this date. I can select here everything, Home tab, centralize, put everything in bold, and also with all borders. Okay, I think now it's good. And the last step that I'm going to do here before we actually start to do the due dates and the paid out and these types of status here, let me click here in View tab and read it off the guidelines. Okay. Now, something that we can start here is to fill it in the first row and try to make the spreadsheet starts to work. The ID here, I can type it in the ID mode, or let me just input here a random number. The start date, let's say, the start date can be today. So you can type it in the today's date. The due dates in days, maybe, I think in this first row it can be, let's say, 30 days. Okay, so enter. Or actually, instead of using the today's date as the start date, I'm gonna change here and use the September 1st of 2023, for example. And the due date in days is equal to 30 days. So what is the due date? To do it, we can do here simple math. That is equal to the start date add to the due date in days that we have here. So the start date add to these 30 days that I have here. Enter. And this is important because when I click here in the down right corner of the cell, hold and drag down, that way all the rows is going to contain the same formula, and the due date that way is going to be always is going to display the due date automatically based on the start date and the due date in days. So how can I do here the days to expiration? Equals sign, I can take maybe the due date here, the due date minus the today's date, for example. Enter. Okay, so I have here 5 days left to the expiration date. And so here it's on time, the status, on time. Okay, I know that we're gonna do this status automatically, but just to type it in here, what we're gonna use, okay? And in the next row, maybe we can input some days, negative days to the expirations, or it's already due or overdue, for example. So I'm gonna type it in here an ID, such as this. My start date can be the same date. Due days can be, let's say, 10 days. And the due date, let me bring it down like this. And the days to expiration, I can click, hold, and drag down also. Why I got here this weird number right here, 45,000? I think it's wrong. And actually it is, because whenever you click, hold, and drag down a function or a formula, all the cells that you selected is going to follow along. This is why we need to lock this reference right here, the date. Because if you doesn't lock here, this is what's going to happen. The cell is going to go down. So to make sure we can lock the reference, let me come back here again to the first cell as the days to expiration. And this cell right here, B3, that corresponds to the cell where we have the today's function. I'm going to select and press F4 key. F4 key. That way we can input here the $sign before the letter and also before the number. Enter. Now let me just bring it out again. And yeah. So here we have in the second row minus negative 15 days. So okay, it's overdue. And something that is maybe I can create here another status too. I already have two different status, on time and overdue. If you want to insert a third one, it can be maybe a paid out, for example, paid out or paid, something like this. To do it, you can create here another column to help you and actually act like a helper column. So let me just select here the entire column G, right click, insert. Okay, in this new column right here, I'm gonna type it in payment, for example. Imagine that I'm using this spreadsheet to the payment control, but you can actually use it to products or to services, whatever. And whenever, let's say, I have here another situation with a new ID, it can be the same start date. The due dates can actually be 100 days. Here I'm gonna have the due date and the days to expiration, 75 days left. Okay, so it's a lot of time yet. But if somebody, or you, of course, type it in here, paid out, it means the client, the customer, or whatever, just paid out this thing that we are controlling here. So the status is gonna change to paid out, for example. So now we have three different status. The first one is on time, the second one is overdue, and the third one is paid on time. And to do this status to automatically change for us, we can use the if function here in Excel. Let me just copy this status here and bring it here to the right, just to keep it tracking all of the status that I'm going to use here. Let me come back here, and I'm going to use the if function, equal sign, if function, double click here, 1, 2. The if function is going to help me to automatically input the status whenever criteria are met or is met, for example, okay? The first criteria that we can look for example, is if there is something in this cell right here that is equal to paid out, for example, I know the status also need to be equal to paid out if this cell to the left right here in the payment is equal to open quotations mark paid out close quotations mark, comma, if it's true, if the cell actually has inside the paid out text, the value if it's true is equal to open quotations paid out unquote and close parentheses. For example, let's stick just first here with just one criteria. Enter. Let me click here in the down right corner of the cell, click hold and drag down, and the first criteria is done, so paid out. Whenever I type it in here in the payment column, the word paid out, for example, as you guys can see, the status is going to be automatically changed and updated for me. Now let's input another criteria that can be the on time. And the on time criteria is an interesting one because how can we define here within the if function to help us to know what is on time or not? The on time is going to be dependent on the days to expiration. So if the days to expiration is greater than 0, it's on time. Or actually, it can include the 0 too. So maybe we can use greater than or equal to 0. If it's equal to 0, it's on time. If it's greater than 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 100, it's on time too. Okay, so I can input this criteria, this condition within the if function too. Let me double click here in the first cell, 1, 2. I'm going to delete the second parenthesis right here. Or you can also follow along through the formula bar too. I think it's easier to see. I'm going to delete the last parenthesis and then comma. The thing that I'm going to do here, because as I have two more criteria left to insert here, and the if function is only allow me here to input just one more condition, I'm going to need to input another if function within the if function. If function, double click here, 1, 2 to select. That way, now I have two more conditions to input here. And let's say my second condition, I'm going to start with the logical test of that condition, and it can be the on time. So if the expiration days that I have here, okay, the expiration days is greater than or equal to, look at the sign that I'm using here, greater than or equal to 0, comma, the value, if it's true, is going to be equal to quote, on time, unquote, comma. If it's not true, however, can close here the if function, and I can just type it in now the last criteria that I have, that is the overdue, because as you guys can see, if it's equal to paid out, it's going to be equal to paid out. So the first criteria are met. The second criteria that we have is the on time. And the on time is going to take all the values that is greater than or equal to 0. If these two conditions that I just typed in before here are not met, the only thing that is left is the overdue criteria. So I don't need to do again the logical test and tell to if function, hey, take a look in all the days to expiration that is less than 0, for example, to use as the criteria overdue. No, I don't need to do it because this is the only thing that is left in. So quote overdue, for example, unquote, close parentheses again, and then I can press here, enter. Now I just can click here, drag and drag down like this, and we're done. So we have here on time, overdue, and paid out. Maybe here we have a problem because whenever you have some rows where we not already fill in with informations, we're gonna have always on time. If you want to read it off this information here, on time or any other status where you didn't yet fill it in with informations, you can use again another if function to help you. So let me click here in the first cell in the status, and through the formula bar, just before everything that I have here, equal sign, and then I'm going to type it in if again. Double click here, 1, 2, and within this new parenthesis that just opens here for me, I'm going to do here a logical test. If, let's say, the ID is equal to nothing or is equal to a blank cell, the status is also going to be equal to a blank cell, okay? So if my ID is equal to quote, unquote, open quotations marks, close quotations marks, is equal to blank, okay? So if it's equal to blank, comma, the value, if it's true, is also going to be open quotations, close quotations, or blank, comma, close parentheses here in the last argument, and then enter. Now we're done. I can click here without to make sure all the rows contain the same function, and we're done. Another interesting thing that we can do here, if you want to do it, but the spreadsheet is already working, is to put here some highlights. The on time can be yellow, the overdue can be red, and the payout can be green. To do this status, let me select here everything in the status column, but the headers, and I can go to Home tab, to the left, to the right, sorry, Conditional Formatting, highlight cells rules, and I can click here equal to. And then I want to highlight as yellow, for example, everything that is on time. So on time, enter. And as you guys can check it out here, it's already working. Another thing that we can do here again, Home tab, Conditional Formatting, highlight cells rules equal to paid out is going to be equal to greenish, okay? And the last one is going to be head. Whenever we have the status that is equal to overdue. Okay, now we're done. Whenever you have here now, let's say, some change in the status or some change in anything else in the spreadsheet, the status is going to be automatically updated for us. And of course, we also have here a visual alert that is the status and also the colors, the highlights that we have in the cell of the status. So I hope guys this video can help you out on how can you track the expiration dates of things. And of course, you can use it for services, for products, and for anything else that you like to use, okay? I hope this video can help you out, and if you have any questions about this subject right here, or if you want a new video about a new subject, let me know, comment down below, and I see you tomorrow. As every day has a new video, I see you there.